What's going on, y'all? It's Big Facts again, coming at you with another video. So recently, I was just online and, once again, this whole ADOS movement was trending, and I wanted to find out what seemed to be the real reason why. And I guess it was some issue with Tariq Nasheed and brother Jay Morrison of the Tulsa Real Estate Fund. I like Jay. And they were going at it, I guess, Tariq just basically going at Jay for his stance on the whole ADOS movement and black reparations, primarily about black reparations. But what I wanted to just, impart my 2 cents, which I feel like is very valid, and I hope many people take into account of this, because people that I speak to outside, and when they hear my position on this, they tend to agree, especially those that fall under that ADOS movement banner. And the whole ADOS movement, American descendants of slaves, that is I respect that. I honestly do respect that movement. The ADOS movement is fine and all. However, I think they are not going down the right path on what they need to be focusing on. See, they are trying to clamor for reparations, which I feel like is honestly going to lead them to a dead end. And they're going to get to a point of no return that they're going to end up finding out that they shot themselves in the foot. Instead, what they need to be doing with ADOS is they need to make it as a grassroots movement as it has been, but instead try to establish a culture for American descendants of slavery. Try to establish some sort of culture that they can all fall in line and abide by. Because when you look at it, when you have a culture, you set up a standard. You set up a standard that all people of your same background, worldwide, across the nation, wherever you may have, they will all follow that. They will all have that code, because they like to talk about getting on code. But how can you get on code when you don't even have a culture? You see, and a lot of black people, and I've spoken to plenty of black Americans, and they say the same thing too, that they have no culture. They lack that culture. So I do respect ADOS for that fact, that if they try to channel that energy in developing a culture, a standard culture that all black Americans can come under that umbrella and say, hey, this is our culture. This is our tradition. This is what we're going to follow by. This is what we're going to go by. Hey, more power to them. I actually respect them for them, and I will applaud them for doing so. I think their respect level in this country will actually go up, because the real reason is ADOS is just reactionary. We're living in times where it's sad to say that black Americans are the lowest in the socioeconomic totem pole. So they're feeling a bit of a crunch. They're diminishing the numbers. They're not seeing the employment gains that other groups are. They're seeing other groups clicking up and, promoting their traditions, promoting their culture, promoting their background. So they feel left out. So ADOS is just reactionary to that. And I totally get it. And even more so because they see that their other racial brethren, meaning Africans or Caribbeans, they see how those guys promote their nationality, promote their culture. So black Americans and those ADOS alike, they look at, well, if these people are promoting their own, they're kind of creating a sense of separation amongst themselves. So we need to do ours. And I totally get it, and I respect ADOS for that. However, just because the Caribbean or the African celebrates their nationality or promotes their culture does not mean that you have to now separate yourself racially from them, because you're not going to do that. You should not do that, because you still are the same. Still are the same racially, just from a different nation, different nationality, and you may have different cultures. Even in Africa, you find so many different people from different tribes, different ethnic groups, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, they're still African. Same thing with Caribbeans. You see Jamaicans, you see people from Trinidad and Tobago, Virgin Islands. Yeah, they all have their own dialect of speaking their languages, but at the end of the day, they are still Africans. They are still black. So the same thing applies to you, ADOS supporters. You are still African. And it's very, 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 belittling of yourself by denying your African ancestry. Because what you're doing is you're indirectly trying to integrate with your oppressor, that being the white American. And even when you look at it like this, let's just even bring it so. Not only are you trying to integrate with your oppressor, but you're trying to promote American imperialism. Because by promoting that American imperialist mindset, the reason what I'm trying to get at is, in the diaspora, Black Americans aren't even the largest group of Black people outside of the continent of Africa. You got to look at it as the Black Latinos in Brazil. Brazil has the largest population of Blacks outside of Africa. And even when you go to Brazil, they do not deny their African ancestry. Heck, some of the Brazilians there actually still speak Yoruba or any other African, some of their African languages. So they don't even behave in that type of manner. So why would you? And if you combine all of Latin America, the amount of Black people there in Latin America outnumbers the amount of blacks in the United States. But that's just another topic for another day. But my main thing is this. ADOS, you have to develop a culture, because when you develop a culture, you help stabilize the Black home. And the Black home needs to be stabilized. Candace Owens spoke about this at the Revolt Summit, and she was right. The issue with the Black man not being in the home. Because right now, Black America is ruled by a matriarch, and that matriarch has failed. If you look at every successful group, even the group that is in power, which is a white man, a white American, it is all led by a patriarchy. The white house, the white home, the Hispanic home, the Asian home, the Arab home. They are all led by a patriarch. So the Black man needs to regain his home. That is the main thing. And the way you regain your home is by establishing a culture. So ADOS, focus your attention on establishing a culture. Forget about those reparations. Forget about it, because you cannot put a price tag on the lives that were lost and the blood, sweat, and tears that was put in by Blacks in America to build this country. You can't put a price tag on that. And by doing so, what you're indirectly doing is spitting in the faces of your ancestors, saying you're putting a value, saying you were only worth this much. Your struggle was only worth this much. No, do not do that. Do not set yourself up for that. You're an American. There's no doubt about it. You own this country just as much as, actually more than any other group here. Own it. But at the same time, develop a culture for yourself, but never forget home, which is Africa. Never forget that. You cannot. Because when you do that, you disconnect yourself and you isolate yourself from that. What you're indirectly doing is you're making yourself open to any type of foreign attack. Because if you look at it, white America is not going to come to your rescue. They haven't for this long. They're not going to. The mere fact that you're American, they do not look at you as the same. They do not value your status. Look at every other group. The Asian American still remembers he comes from Vietnam. He still remembers that he comes from Japan, China, whatever. They still remember that. That's why they call themselves Japanese American or Chinese American. Heck, even the white man still remembers that he came from Europe, because that's why they call themselves German American or French American or Anglos coming from England. They still remember that. Or Spanish American, whatever it may be. Italian American. They still remember that they came from Europe. So don't try to separate yourself from Africa. No, do not. In essence, what you need to do is you need to collaborate with those. If you see, look at the population, the Black population is diminishing. You see the Hispanics do it. They help bring over their brothers and sisters from Latin America, repopulate with themselves. So if you want to put words to action, hey, why don't you, some of you Black women that are in search of a Black man, why don't you also mate with an African? Help increase your number with an African immigrant. Raise up your Black American numbers. Or you Black American men, why don't you mate with an African woman? You will be the head of the household. You're the man. So that child will be a descendant through you. Then you will increase your numbers through there, like they say. Strength in numbers. There will be power in numbers in politics. But the main focus is that ADOS needs to do is you need to develop a culture, regain and stabilize the Black home, and everything else will fall in place. Trust and believe that. Because when you establish a culture, you establish standards for yourself. creating those standards nobody can break, nobody can twist and turn you. You guys will all be on code, as you like to say, and you guys can all formulate an agenda that everybody can come by, and that will bring improvement into your home and into your society. And moreover, what are Black Americans going to do with the money if given to them on reparations? What are they going to do with the money other than hand it right back to the oppressor, hand it right back to the white man? Because a lot of those people, what they're going to spend the money on are just depreciating goods, consumer goods, clothes, jewelry, cars. A lot of the problems they won't even be able to solve because a lot of Black people lack financial literacy. They lack financial literacy. So how are they going to improve their society when they're not even financially literate? So the main thing is baby steps, lay a foundation. And how do you lay the foundation on improving your status? Is by establishing a culture. You see it amongst the Jews, the Chinese, the Hispanics, whites, Africans. I mean, and you know, this is why I say Africans and people in the diaspora, they have to collaborate. We cannot divide amongst ourselves. We cannot. But I want to hear what y'all have to say. Like, comment, subscribe down below. I'm out.